the Bible will spring to life in this special series on archaeology. And now, here's your host on Adventures in Learning, Rose Van Reken.
Hello. It's really good to be back with you again. And I'm so happy that on today's program we have a very special guest. Her name is Ruby Free. Really now it's Ruby Free Geezer. And Ruby with her husband was working on Dothan. You remember I told you a little about that last week. Ruby, I was telling them last week how I became interested in archaeology, and it was your husband who gave me my first interest.
Is that right?
It sure is. And I know that you worked with him on Dothan. For how long did you two work?
Well, we had 9 seasons of excavating, and I learned an awful lot about archaeology.
I believe that. I know in just my brief visits with you, I have also learned a lot more. I really appreciate all the things that you brought today and what you're going to tell us, Ruby. I was wondering if you would like to show us, first of all, about the beautiful painting that you brought to let us know what Dothan is like. Would you do that?
I'd be happy to, because it is a beautiful picture in itself. This is an oil painting made by an artist who was on one of our expeditions, and after she had spent the year with us, the season with us, then the next year she sent this picture just to show her appreciation for having been on the excavation, for which we greatly appreciated. Now, this is a picture of Tel Dothan. Tel is the Arabic word for mound, and that's why we call it a tel. And this is the actual size of the hill on which the tel was built, or the cities were built. And as they were destroyed and leveled out, and lived on again, and then destroyed and leveled out, we have another stratification of about 50 feet of destruction there, in which we can excavate and find out who it was, and what of importance, and what connection with the Bible. Now, I don't know how much time I should take about what the connections are with the Bible. It's mentioned in Genesis 37, when Joseph was sent up by Jacob to look for his brothers, and Elisha and his servant was standing up here when they saw the Assyrian armies coming to capture him. But we will have another picture on a slide that will show that better.
Beautiful. Do you want to show us the graph too, Ruby? Would you like to use this? On the graph?
This is a drawn to scale, more or less, showing the levels that we found when we put down our deep sounding from the lower level at the top of the mound. And we got down to the period of 3000 BC, which is 1,000 years earlier than Abraham. So it's a very, very old mound. And no doubt when Abraham was coming over from the Ur of the Chaldees, where the Lord told him to go out, he followed the Fertile Crescent and then came back down through the Holy Land. We have evidence of the pottery of his time. Whether he lived there and was a city there for a while, we do not know. It isn't mentioned in the Bible, but it's interesting to find we have pottery from that period. And so we now have the 1,000 years before the time of Abraham. That much farther we went down. And that would be levels 11, 10, 8, and 7. When we come up to this part, then we have the Abrahamic period, 2000 to 1800. And then Joseph, and then Moses and Joshua as they came into the land. And then David and Solomon when he set up his kingdom. And our big tomb that we discovered was right in the period of the Solomonic period. And then Elisha, the great prophet, and he also figures in 2 Kings 6, where he and his servant were up on the top of this beautiful mound up here. and saw the armies of Syria coming to surround them. And then we go on further up, and we have the intertestamental period, 300 to 50, with the periods of those who were testifying then. And then the New Testament and early church period from 506 to 300 BC or AD, and then going right on up to the later Arabic period after the Crusader period. And so we have everything then from top down, from the later Arabic period to even before Abraham, 1,000 years before Abraham.
I have a question, Ruby. Now, this is the stratification part, but the mound that used to be is below this, isn't it? This is just the part where the people live, right?
A part of this is, I would say, it's about like this. You compare that mound,
right?
You see,
with the
but this is actually the stratification. The mound on which it was built, is not shown here.
Okay.
This is the levels of stratification where people lived.
Okay, now there's an unusual thing about this. You and your husband bought the tell, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
I can't believe it, but I guess you bought it from, how many people in our country who are Christians own land in Israel?
I don't know of anybody else. It's been a very unusual situation. The Lord interfered. I can't tell the story, it's too late, too long, but it was owned by a very wealthy Arab family. And the only way that we could get it would be by renting it. And we had a very good friend, a Christian friend who's an Arab in the Holy Land. And he said, I know those people up there on a first name basis. And he said, I will talk to them. And so they were not in accord with it the first year. The second year, the head of the clan died, and the heir apparent was a 21-year-old spoiled rich man's son. And so he was interested in making more money on this mound.
So he wanted to sell it?
So he was ready to rent it to us.
Oh, to rent it. Okay.
So we started out renting it for the 2 or 3 years, and each year the rent went up. And so our lawyer, who was a Christian, brother to Najib Khoury, who was the one who told us about them, he knew them on a first name basis. He said, if you are interested in doing further, you should buy it. So we finally got it for $10,000.
Oh, I think that's remarkable. How many acres?
28 acres.
28 acres. That's remarkable. Why did you, in the first place, choose Dothan?
Well, because we knew it was a buried city. This is typical of the shape that you find when the cities are buried and then rebuilt again, and they're buried by various different ways, by earthquake, by invasion, and by pestilence, and by, well, there's one more I can't think of it, fire. And fire is one of the best. We're happy, sorry for the fire, but it's good because it leaves ash levels, and it helps us to find our way and our levels identified more easily with a destruction by fire.
I see. So you chose it partly because it was a good tell.
It's a very outstanding tell. It's one of the unusual ones, and it's never lost its identity.
That's right. It's been Dothan since Bible times, hasn't it?
Yes. And it's mentioned twice in the Bible.
Yes. Well, that's beautiful. I know I shouldn't do this, Ruby, but could you give me a definition of archaeology as you see it?
Well, I thought you might ask me that question just to make it real quick.
Is that what the card says?
Well, archaeology is a scientific study of the life and culture of ancient people as by excavation of ancient cities, buried cities, and we find their artifacts, and artifacts is something that you make with your hands, and their relics. And by that, we learn about these different peoples and about the different levels where people lived. Is that
I think that's pretty
clarified?
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. Ruby, you've got lots of things on this table. How many objects did you really find in the tell?
I have no idea. Thousands.
I read somewhere that you found 5,000. Is that?
It must be. Yes.
I can't believe it. I think it's great that you gave us just a sampling of the things that you found when you were here, when you were there. And I would hardly know where to begin to have you show some of these to us. Would you like to start maybe with the lamps?
That's a very good place to start, because with the lamps we are able to date the earlier and later periods. Your first lamp was just a round saucer, and this was in the earlier period. And you can see it was probably used as a lamp because we had the black, where the little wick would hang over the side, and they would have olive oil on the inside. And then they would carry this around, or they could put it on a lampstand if they wanted to light their house. And then we find as we progress, the lamp had a pinched lip, and that was to hold the spout in place so it wouldn't slide around. And that is a typical lamp coming up after the period of Abraham. And now we're getting more into the later periods where the lamp is nearly parallel. And then where it's beginning to be pinched together. And here we're getting into the period of the Solomonic period, or the period of King Solomon's time.
What would they use for a wick?
There would just be a little, well, they would probably make it out of wool or something, and because they did spin their wool, and they made their clothing, and they wove their clothing.
Did they have twisted flax?
Yes, and we'll talk about that when we come to these. That has connection with that. And then later, then we see that it's pinched more and more as we get closer to the period of Elisha's time. This is definitely from Elisha's time, with a little stump base on here, and you can even see the black on the spout from the soot of the lamp.
It has a very big base, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, this was one, he had two different styles. There were different styles of lamps, but this was one that's typically in the period of Elisha's time. And then we find that the lamp gets now almost being pinched together. And then finally, we get up to the period of, now this really should come first. This is your Hellenistic period, or your Greek period. And then this is right in the period of Christ. We can pinpoint this right to the period of Christ. This is the kind that the wise and foolish virgins would have carried.
That's so cute. I have one like this at home too, Ruby.
You do?
Yes, I do. And I just think it's really a neat kind of lamp.
Well, it is. It's you could see they made progress. I mean, they were thinking people back in those days too.
Ruby, you said you were going to tell us something about those. What are those?
These are
looking cone-like things.
These are loom weights. You see, it has a hole clear through it.
May I see it?
Yes. Here's another one with a hole clear through it. We found in one house, we found 18 of these loom weights. And then we found that they were used for weaving, and they would have something up here to hold the string, the wool taut, and another one down here to hold it so it'd be straight up and down.
You mean they use those weights?
That's right. That's right.
At the end of the wool, and then they could weave in between.
They would weave in between. That's right. So we call that house the house of the weaver, because we found 18 of them, and then we would find others in other places.
Beautiful. I have another question, and I have a reason for asking you this one, Ruby. I know that you showed me this the other day, but I would like you to tell us, what is that?
Well,
what are all those little holes?
Well, you know, people in the olden days were much like people today, but of course in a not so sophisticated way. The Philistines were great beer drinkers. And so this is a spout of a juglet in which they would have had their beer, and they made it from wheat. And so they didn't like the feel of the husks of the wheat in their throats. So these are strainers to strain out the husks. So they just got the beer and not the wheat husks with it.
And now I have to tell you why I asked you that question, Ruby. In our Bar magazine of September-October 1982, on one of the pages, you won't believe it, but I found a jug, a Philistine beer jug, and it looks exactly like what you showed us. I just couldn't believe it.
I've never seen that, a whole one. So that is a real lesson for me.
Isn't that interesting?
Right.
You can see the holes in it. Is it fine?
We found a number of them. So
Oh, did you
apparently
really?
it
I
was,
thought that was
yes,
so neat because I remembered
really
I had
is.
seen one of these from you. What about this lamp, Ruby? Is
Well,
that
this-
a lamp or is it?
Yes,
It
it is a lamp. And you notice how many lips it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, we found this in the earliest levels. And this has something to do very much with the critical attitude of the Bible. When our people came out of Moses led the people out of Egypt and their wilderness wanderings. You know, they took their tabernacle with them and they had their worship. They set up their tabernacles at night, and or whenever the period time comes for them to worship, they would do that. And they had in that the 7-branch candlestick. Well, the critics said, when we say the time of the period that they would have come out of Egypt, they said, oh, that's impossible, because they wouldn't even have had a concept of a 7-branch candlestick, because they're thinking in the field of developing from the crude to the more sophisticated, you know, becoming less animal-like and more like a person that we are. But we find that this is in the earliest periods, and they certainly knew how to make, they had a concept of it. It wouldn't, of course, have been as fine as would have been used in their services. But we found this in the period of 1300 BC. And that was right in the bottom of our big Canaanite tombs. And that was about the time that Joshua or that Abraham came into the land.
I have a question. Did you find a lot of broken pieces? And when they were broken, did you have to spend a lot of time fixing them, or did you throw a lot of pottery away if it was just pieces?
We threw nothing away but sherds, and the sherd is a piece of pottery that you don't know where it belongs to or how it fitted in. So we have a great sherd pile. If you ever go to Dothan, help yourself to as many as you want.
Oh, I would like to do that. You know, I've heard that there are sherd piles at almost every dig.
That's right.
And you know, some of us just really long to have just a few sherds.
We didn't throw away all the sherds, though, because you can use them for dating. And so we have a good amount of them at Wheaton. Wheaton is our headquarters for our display of the things that we had at Dothan.
Could you tell us what these are?
Well, we think that they were, we call them epixides, and because we found so many of them of all different sizes and shapes. I don't have the big grandfather one here, there's much this big around, but we found so many of them in the tomb. And then we found about the same number of a little saucer type, which you don't seem to have brought today. So we felt that this was what was used for the oil, and to replenish the well, like this is a lamp that could have been used, like the wise and foolish virgins. You know, the foolish ones came without any oil, and because there were the enormous amount of them, and we also find them in stratification. So it's something that you have with you daily and use daily.
And olive oil especially, was very much used by the early people, was it not?
Oh, yes,
they had many uses, I believe. What were some of the uses? As I remember, they did use them for lamps and even for medicine.
Oh, yes.
And for cooking.
And for cooking. Yes, it was their staple.
Yes.
And this little wick they would have hanging out of here, the oil was in here, and that's why you still have the black on the spout for where the
yes, I have. I hate to tell you this, but I also have a lamp. Would you believe? I really feel kind of rich in some of the things that I was able to obtain.
Well, I'm so glad you found them. If you paid for one, you probably paid high.
Yeah, I'm afraid I paid more than you did, Ruby. I have another question. This first is the biggest thing about the tallest one you have here. What is that?
Well, this is a chalice. I just like to turn it so you can see really the nice lines of even one this crude. And this comes from this period of Solomon. Now then, the people, no doubt, we found this upside down. And then we put it together. This would be for the average person in his home. but
To do what?
to drink from.
You're
A
kidding.
toast. A
Like
toast.
what?
Well, whatever they
No.
drank in those days.
Like wine? I mean,
Could be.
You mean anybody would drink that much wine, Ruby?
Well, apparently. But
It seems like a lot to me.
But in
I
Solomon's
believe you.
time, it was no doubt of silver
Sure.
or gold.
Sure. And it could have been much
But this
weaker
is
wine, right?
actually called a chalice.
Beautiful. It's so crudely done, though.
Yeah.
Did you notice that in the pottery? Have you noticed that the later pottery was not as good sometimes as earlier pottery? Was that true or not?
Well, there was a refinement. Like now, for instance, of course, now this is an import. We'll get to that. That was true in some cases, and I don't think you can make it
a general rule.
A general rule.
Okay, I just wondered. I thought I had read that.
Now this was typical. Now you see Abraham. This is typical of Abraham's time. Is it right to lift these?
It would be better maybe to leave them on.
And when you
It would
have
be
the
nice, I
double
think.
handle, the double handle is very typical of Abraham's period. And this coronation, they call it, this sharp edge on the side, like a prow of a ship, was typical. And you see, Abraham came from a background of wealth and culture. And then the Lord asked him to go out into a place that he knew not where. Well, he would have brought this knowledge of this culture with him. And we find the period of the things of Abraham's period as really being very unusually cultured, even more so than what we find later in Elisha's period.
Yes, I'm always intrigued by Ur of Chaldees, where David came from. This little juglet.
It's a dipper juglet, and we have the big. I have one beautiful big one, but I couldn't bring it in. Stands about table high, and it's pointed at the bottom, and it has to be set in a ring. And those were storage jars. They used them for storage of grain, for oil, for many commodities, and then they would have to get a dipper to dip in. So this is a dipper juglet for the use. And we find them, through many periods. They're not just eliminated in one period.
Now, if you want it, okay.
Now, this is an import. I just want you to see the beautiful sides. It's been tried to be copied, but it is a poor copy. And this was this shows that the Assyrians, we found it in the top of the period, the time of the Assyrians made its invasions into Syria, into the Holy Land, into Israel. And so there was no doubt that they did make them as the Bible indicates. Because there's this pottery, this metal, or this cannot be duplicated. We tried it. Then we have these flints. We found them through all periods of time, not just all at the beginning. I have noticed in university displays of archaeology, they have all of the flints at the beginning. That meant that the man was very not developed enough to know how to make a knife or things like that, and they had to use these crude things to cut with, is the chipped flint. Well, I will have you know, we found them in every period, and they are using them today in the Holy Land for circumcisional ceremonies. So that is another mark against evolution. Then we have the little dumbbell handle. This is very typical of the period of Elisha's time, with this little handle on here that looks like a dumbbell. And we found...
that? Why do you call this a dumbbell?
Well, it just looks like a dumbbell. So it's labeled as a dumbbell object. You have to stick some kind of a name to them.
I have one more I want to ask you about, which I'm going to hold for you. May I?
So glad
I want
you
to know about this. What is this?
This is the wheel to a little wagon for a child's toy. And I want you to know, in the University of Chicago, they have all four wheels and the little box all made of clay, and that was a child's plaything. So people haven't changed.
No, I guess they haven't.
We take care. We have fun for our children,
right?
We do now. these are the loom weights. We talked about these.
Right.
And now you see the lamps, how they have changed. And when we get down to the where it's very narrow, this is very typically the time of Elisha. And then still narrowing as we came on down. And then we get into the Greek period. This is definitely Greek. And then this is very typical of the time, the kind that was used in the time of Christ.
Right. Ruby,
Right,
I'm going to stop you here just a minute because I want to ask you something personal. I'm sure that everybody wants to know you were Ruby Free, right? You married Joseph.
Yes.
And you worked with him on the tell.
Right.
Okay. But what? Joseph died, didn't he?
Yes. My Joseph died.
How long
7
ago
years,
was that?
7 years ago. Right.
And just recently, something quite wonderful happened to you.
Yes, the Lord is good. Those 7 years were very long. And although I never did feel really alone, the Lord, I felt a presence with me after Joe left me. And I was always a fearful person, and I wasn't fearful anymore. But then I had a very good friend who took care of my eyes, all of my problems with my eyes, and a very good friend of him and his wife died last year. And so the Lord brought us together.
Yes, I know.
And we are very happy in the Lord. He's a wonderful Christian. And we are
And his name is Dr. Ken Gieser. And today, Ruby is Ruby Free Gieser. And we really are very happy, Ruby, that you were with us today. And you know what? I know that you have slides, and we're going to have another program following in about 2 or 3 weeks, and we will let Ruby show her slides of Dothan. Don't you dare to miss it. Thanks a lot, Ruby.
Well, thank you.
It was so good to have you.
I've enjoyed it.